Welcome to this short presentation, which I've called Virtual Project Management. My name is Peter Taylor. I'm also known as the Lazy Project Manager, and some of you may have heard of me. This is me sitting in my comfy chair. I think all lazy project managers should have a comfy chair because it's all about working productively, lazily, and working smarter, not harder. I am an author. Obviously, the first book I wrote was called The Lazy Project Manager, but since then I've written many other books focusing on topics such as PMO leadership, strategies for project sponsorship, some series follow-ons from The Lazy Project Manager, The Lazy Project Manager and The Project from Hell, The Lazy Winner, etc., and books about project branding, project marketing, and also I'm working on one at the moment which is about presentational skills. I'm a speaker, love to travel the world and get invited to a number of conferences around the world, as well as in-house presentations, working inside organisations at project management and other business events as well. Linked to my books, particularly, I run a series of workshops to assist organisations in raising the quality of project management capability and experience. And I'm also a consultant working with some organisations around the world, working with them to raise the quality of project management capability again, so working with the project managers, the community of project managers, but also focusing on PMO development and leadership, and executive sponsorship is a very popular topic these days, working with the executive team to raise their capability in being effective project sponsors inside organisations. What I want to talk about in this session is actually very timely because there is a new book coming out called Real Project Management. It's going to be published by Kogan Page. It's in the sort of pre-publication stage at the moment. We've finished editing, etc., done all the research, done all the writing, and what this one is about. The book was written to try and understand what attracted young project management professionals to this world. Why do they want to become project managers? Whether that be as seeing project management as a full career, or whether they just saw the need to understand project management as a kind of stepping stone to other business roles and senior opportunities, and that was great, and and that's a lot of the book is about that. But the other part of the book was understanding what these very same people felt were the significant challenges in the projects that they're going to be working on in the coming years. And here you can see a subset of the survey that I completed. So what you're looking at here is this is young project managers, just a subset of the full survey response. So these are people with less than 3 years project management experience. And I've asked a very open question: just tell me what it is that you are most concerned about in being challenged. Now, being clear here, this wasn't the fact that they were afraid of these issues or they didn't accept these issues were part and parcel of being a project manager. It was just, what do you see as the most challenging ones, the ones you really need to concentrate on? And as you can see from that, there's a whole range. There's the whole sort of PMO maturity connection to the business strategy. There was the agile project demands versus the sort of non-agile. There was the sort of scope control, financial budget, expectation management. An interesting one of entitled Projects as Usual, where a number of projects are being led by non-project managers inside the organisation. Sustainability, green project management, the economy, of course, was in there. And a whole bunch of things. And quite interesting is also on the right hand side in green there you can see that there was also a concern about lack of training and lack of support from the organisations to support these young project managers, which is obviously an area of concern and something I cover in some detail in the book. But for the purposes of this presentation, I want to focus on the top two really, and it's over the left hand side. You can see communications and virtual teams as coming out as the highest ranking. Communications was all about the fact that as a project manager, of course, you've got to communicate. 70, 80, 90% of your time is some form of communication. So that's always been the way for a project manager to be successful. They have to be good communicators. If you're not, then the chances are you really aren't going to succeed. But it was all more than that. It wasn't just the fact that communication was an issue. It's the fact that there was a recognition that there are just so many new channels of communicating, so many new tools, the social tools, for example, explosion, that caused some sort of level of concern in the sense of which tool to use, which communication channel to use and when. And Also, with the scope of projects and the increased number of stakeholders that were involved or had a vested interest in projects, there was this kind of increasing volume of communication that project managers saw as well. And of course, the whole collaboration thing of actually working with virtual teams, which leads on to sort of the next one, the fact that, in the good old days, or when I started out in project management, typically the resources would all be in one single location. Well, at worst, they'd be working on different floors in a large office building or some sort of manufacturing complex or something. But with a bit of planning, you could get everybody into a room for a meeting and see them face to face. But these days, of course, that's really not the world we live in. These projects these days often have a global reach and therefore obviously have remote team members. And as such, there is a sort of increased need to build team spirit, engagement, and focus, and work with a team where you chances are you've just never met them face to face. Certainly, the whole team will never get together face to face. So that was an area of real concern for them. So communication and virtual teams. That's really the two things I'm combining here. It is this virtual world. The fact that this is a new dimension or growing dimension. We're seeing more and more projects kicking off this way, where for a lot of reasons, very very good reasons, that they will secure resources. The scope of the project itself will mean it's reaching outside a single location, geographical location, to multiple locations in one country, to multiple countries, to multiple regions, and so forth. So just the scope of the project can do that. But secondly, the resources that they're using to actually deliver this project are also from all over the world. They might be subject matter experts in different remote locations, teams that you want to bring those resources in. There can be a cost factor to this, of course. You want to use offshore resources because it is financially better for the project and therefore for the business. Lots of good reasons why this happens, but as a result of that, it adds a kind of an extra layer, an extra dimension to the communication challenge and responsibility of the project manager. As I said, this was very timely, and it is incredibly timely because I was at a conference recently, and they, apart from being one of the keynotes at the conference, they asked me to chair one of the birds of a feather tables. And this is where you, in a room, they will have a series of topics, and the idea is that one person sort of oversees the discussions, and people just move to the table they want to according to how important they see this topic being. This is the birds of a feather technique, and it really worked. This one, this was great. And this particular conference, I was asked to basically host the table to talk about the secrets of effective cross-cultural communication. So the secrets of effective cross-cultural communication, and I was happy to do that because it is a key topic for me. And I was thrilled because when I looked around the room, I think they had about 10 different topics, so 10 big round tables, and we were by far the most popular. We had people sitting closely around the table and in the second row behind them and standing and joining in. It was great. And so to approach this conversation, we kicked off with a sort of open discussion about the issues and challenges that relate to this kind of virtual, this cross-cultural extended communication. Generally speaking, the group felt this was a challenge, but also it's the reality of the current world that we live in, with more and more project teams being made up of remote, therefore multicultural resources, and they felt this would become even more common. And whilst it had challenges, it also had significant opportunities, of course, and they saw that opportunities from a business point of view. The fact that projects become more inclusive, that they could create change faster. They recognised potentially the financial benefit of doing it this way, but they also said this is a great opportunity for us as project managers, because this is a wonderful opportunity to learn and become even better at what we do, even better and more effective project managers. And so the first thing we did was we just bounced around the issues and the challenges, and the sort of things they came up with, and there's a few of them listed here. they recognised on what they said. There was definitely personal and business misunderstandings that came about through this conversation by not having this this intimate relationship, this physical relationship, this close relationship with resources. They were just people at the end of a telephone, end of a Skype call, end of a web-based conversation. They hadn't connected. Then they saw misunderstandings, miscommunications, errors, misbeliefs. In two areas. There was kind of like on the business level, but also they felt on the personal level that a lot of the communication is based on trust and openness and honesty and all that sort of thing. And when you got things wrong, it not only impacted the project and the business and caused issues, but then on a personal level, they felt that this was a risk as well. Because you might well work with these resources again on a future project, and if things didn't get off to a good start, it didn't just impact the project and the business itself, but it impacted the personal relationship as well. Secondly, they felt that it was really important to achieve accurate and effective communication first time, but this virtualization, this globalization, this remote communication didn't lend itself to this, and therefore there was this problem of how do you go about getting accurate and effective communication right from the start of the project and not having those personal and business misunderstandings. They did also feel, of course, for lots of reasons, reasons of financial constraints, budget constraints, reasons of practicalities, there was a significant reduction in face-to-face meetings when it came to project team activities and building teams, and therefore this impacted the ability to engage and build a relationship, which in turn led to the trust and accuracy of communication, which in turn led to those sort of business and personal misunderstandings. It's all connected. And team building and efficiency they felt was really, really important. It's something that every project manager went through at the start of their project. They would create or do their best to create a team spirit, a connectedness, an engagement, a focus, a priority, all those sort of things. But actually not having this relationship, these face-to-face meetings, it just made it harder. And it was harder because of time zones play a significant part of this, of course. What is your working day in one particular geographical location is not somebody else's working day. And it's surprising what that does. Even for myself, and I'm based in the UK. I work a lot with Europe. Even the 1 hour difference can sometimes cause some issues, let alone moving out of Europe into Asia Pacific and the Americas, etc. That just adds more and more complexity to trying to set up meetings and communications, etc. I'm currently working with a small group of people. There's only 4 of us, but we are in 4 different time zones. 4 different working patterns, etc., and just trying to get regular calls is proving to be quite challenging. And so linked to time zones is this working patterns, because a day is not a day everywhere in the world. People have, of course, different holidays, different public holidays and personal holidays. They have also, within the working day, 9 to 5 is not 9 to 5 in every single country. There are different approaches to working. There are different attitudes to coming in early and working late, etc. It's quite incredible around the world what differences there are. So all of this communication needs to be built on top of this. And this, project managers work on a kind of balance between trust and control. Of course, optimum is to have a good team that you trust, you empower, you push the work to them, and you believe they can deliver. But of course, as a project manager, there's also a degree of control that's required as well. And so this balance between trust and control models is different in this virtual world. And the other point was they just said, they came back with, there are some real practicalities for teams, particularly when it comes to flexibility. A resource in one location is not a resource you can simply necessarily move to another location to fill a gap. And the one point there you can see is like just the complexity or difficulties of travel, of acquisition of visas, that sort of thing. It just, again, it's recognizing that some resources are less flexible than others when it comes to this. So these were the issues and challenges that they came up with. And to solve this, and this is just the output from, as I said, as this short birds of a feather, but I think it's kind of right in its general approach. We came up with a 5-level model. And we felt that these were the steps that would really help if you moved through this to try and improve the situation. The very first thing is awareness. know what the challenge is, be aware of the problem in the first place. Everything I've talked about under those issues, be aware of them. Again, talking to project managers, some of them just hadn't been prepared, were surprised, didn't think it through, were suddenly challenged by some issues, etc. So, knowing what the actual problem is, well, perhaps it's not a problem really. It is a challenge that needs to overcome. It's not necessarily resistance from people or people being difficult or not wanting to contribute. It is a recognition of the fact that there are differences. So awareness preparation through some sort of training, some sort of preparatory work, understand a little bit more about language and about culture and about working with virtual teams, all the time issues, etc. They felt this was really important, that this is something that should be in-company knowledge. And we'll come back to this when we get to the final level of the 5-level model of sharing. But the point about it is, the better prepared you are, then the better you are able to deal with it and plan accordingly. That's kind of the key. So the more you know about the people that you're working with, the more you understand any variances in language and culture and attitudes, etc., and behaviour, then the better prepared you can be. You can build all that into your project planning. The second level was a very practical level. So it was basically having the tools to communicate and understanding what those tools can and can't do, their strengths and their weaknesses. And it's also about time management, and knowing again what working patterns and holidays apply, and what you can and cannot ask people to do, and what is the right and wrong thing to do regarding to their local behaviour and expectations. The third level was all about kind of reinforcement, sort of after the initial awareness training, to use every and all opportunities to learn more and improve your skills as a project manager, and share that amongst your project team, of course. Use some techniques to engage, to involve, and learn from all of the cultures. The fact that I might be running a project that's driven out of the UK, and I'm engaging resources in India, in China, in Australia, and in Canada, or whatever it is. I should. I haven't got all the answers, and I'm not perfect, and my way isn't the only way. So I need to have a very open mind to engage, to involve, and to learn from all the other people who are contributing to this project that I'm overseeing. Understanding was really important as the fifth level. Learning as much as you can about all the various communication techniques. I mean, I'm sure you understand, generally speaking, but there are, when you're communicating, there are transmitters and there are receivers, and then there's kind of noise and distortion, disturbance, and there's a whole reason why, on a technical level, but also on a human level, about why certain communications don't get through, and every form of communication has a very different quality to it. So if we were sitting in a meeting room and I could look at you face to face, I could be picking up on your body language, your facial expressions, your eye contact, and I could read the engagement, and I could try and understand. Were you getting what I was talking about? Are you understanding what I'm saying? Do you agree or do you disagree, etc.? And then, of course, the more you move away from that face-to-face, then the lesser the quality. There's a kind of degradation of quality of communication through certain communication tools. And you need to understand that, and you need to find other ways to reinforce the learning and making sure that what you're saying is getting through. One of the things that the group felt was kind of important here was to have some sort of common framework or method and common terms to work with, which kind of try to constrain any misunderstandings or confusion that might come about, any errors in communication. And then the fifth level was all about sharing. It was saying that as we improve as project managers and project team members, as we learn, then we need to share those multicultural lessons and share them outside of the team. Talk about them just as part and parcel of the lessons learned at the end of a project, of understanding what worked, what didn't work, and how can we improve things, but also to share that knowledge outside the team, which links all the way back to level 1, the awareness, knowing what the challenge is, and that kind of in-company knowledge. When we think about, on a very practical level, awareness, it was all about being prepared. If your company has some sort of multicultural learning opportunities, then for goodness sake, use them. If it doesn't, you might just have to self-learn, and you can self-learn through reading or speaking to other experienced people who have worked with virtual teams, work with different cultures, etc. There are a number of books out there. Understanding the various countries around the world. So it's just a little bit of effort there. It really does pay dividends and help things. On a practical level, make sure you are best supported by tools that aid communication and plan a lot for communication. Don't expect that you can just suddenly call a meeting and everybody's going to be available, etc., because of all the limitations, constraints. Under the reinforcement, we talked some fascinating kind of techniques. And one was assuming that the common business language for the project is English, then one person contributed that they had a rule which was bad English was encouraged. Bad English is allowed, if that is the common language, because it was don't worry about it. Bad English is better than not saying anything at all, and we will share bad English and we will learn together and we'll improve things. Another technique was rotating team calls to share ownership and an opportunity to learn more from each other's culture. So don't constantly host the meeting yourself. Get other groups to host the meeting and include everybody. And part of that, just take 5 minutes or so just to share a little bit about their culture. Coffee or tea breaks common around the world. Use them to relax and engage in a virtual way. You're all down in Tool. You're all down resting at this point in time. Let's just have a very relaxed conversation, and so forth. Under understanding, they run some short lessons, language lessons when you are communicating. If you think about it, if you've got a team around the world, even if you all learn to say hello, please, thank you, and goodbye in everybody's language, then you can have fun with that, and it shows a little bit of openness and inclusivity. Have that common framework, share that basic communication skills and understanding with all the team members. And this includes, obviously, if you can possibly get at least one face-to-face meeting with the core team, it really does help. And sharing it means having a means to learn at the end and also to share that knowledge, which is really, really critical and will help others in the future. And when it comes to team performance, I think we all know the Bruce Tuckman model, which talks about team building. This same thing applies to virtual teams. Every team goes through a formation stage. When they formed, there will be some tension, some difficulties, some challenges. This is the storming phase. And once all that has settled down and people understand their roles and their responsibilities, the team is in what's known as a normal state. It's norming. And then what happens, the magic happens in project teams particularly, you become so efficient and that team is really performing. But of course, when the project finishes, there's a stage afterwards, which is can be known as adjourning or mourning. And it's this stage is the fact that everybody's kind of a little bit down because they had a great time on that last project and now they're having to start a new project. And two things. One, when you're building teams, virtual teams, recognise that this whole process just takes a lot longer. Because you're not all in one room, you can't sort of escalate or not escalate. It can't speed the process up of doing this. It takes longer the further you are apart, physically apart. And secondly, that this applies to all projects, regardless of where the resources are. That you can get your core team up through the forming, storming, norming to performing level, but of course, every time you bring a new set of resources in, they are back in the formation stage, and therefore you have to get them to be part and parcel of the project. And one of the challenges at the start of a project is, of course, you're picking up resources from all over the place that probably have just worked on another project, and for them, that last project is, that was great, that was fantastic. And actually, they're kind of sad. They're mourning about the finishing of the last project. You often see people still meeting up for calls and coffee and talking about the good old project, the good old days. But in fact, they're starting new work. And of course, you've got to get them through that so they reach a norming to performing state in your new project. The success points for virtual, I think, are three. Respecting time, respecting language, respecting views. I think time is the first one. If you respect people's time, recognising that it's not exactly the time where you are in the world with everybody else. Of course not. I worked on one project where we had subject matter experts from around the world, and we had them in the Americas, we had them in Europe, we had them in Australia. And we wanted to engage and use these people. These were subject matter experts that we wanted to contribute to the particular project. But it was tough because the Americans were on the call early hours in the morning, and they were pretty happy. As long as they had a decent cup of coffee, they were fine. In Europe, it was dead easy. Of course, it was right in the middle of our working day. But for the guy in Australia, it was late at night, and you could just tell on the regular calls, and we talked every 2 weeks, that this guy was really struggling to stay awake, stay focused, and he'd already had a full working day. And here he was on an hour or so conference call, trying to contribute to any level of value. And in the end, we decided, this isn't right, this isn't working, it's not fair. And so we changed. In fact, what we did was we rotated calls. We'd have the Americas talk to Europe, and then we'd have Europe talk to Australia, then Australia would talk to America. It went round the world that way. The downside was it took longer to communicate and make decisions, but the pluses just outweighed that negativity, in the sense that the quality of input that we got was significantly higher. So just think about a time when you're speaking to people, and try and respect their local time. Respect language as well. Recognizing that chances are this is not your native language that they are listening in. I'm speaking to you in English now. The chances are you're listening. English is not your native language, and that requires extra work from people to think and process and translate. And it can also lead to some sort of issues and challenges as well, and misunderstandings. And of course, respect their views, because people's attitudes are different around the world, and what can work in one situation may not work in another. So think through these things: time, language, and views. Help is on its way. I think it is anyway. This is the book, Real Project Management, and it's skills and capabilities you will need for successful project delivery. As I said, it is very much focused on the young project managers entering the profession, and how they are going to deal and manage. And this cross-cultural, this virtual project management is a significant part of that. That's it really. It was just a short, sharp look at it, and it's something that is explored in a great more detail inside the book. But for the meantime, I thank you for your attention. This is all of my information and all of the other books I've written up there. You can contact me. Please, LinkedIn. I love LinkedIn, so please do send me an invitation to connect on LinkedIn. And I will happily accept. You can go to a couple of my websites there to find out more information. You've got my email address there. I'm on Twitter @TheLazyPM. And also I run a free podcast called The Lazy Project Manager on iTunes, and so there's a lot of interesting information there, and interviews with people and things like that. So I hope this has been of some interest and value to you, and I wish you all the very best in your future virtual project management.